right, it looks like we are live. So I'm going to ask if anybody can give me a thumbs up in the chat to let me know if you hear me. Let me know if you see me. That'd be super helpful. There's usually a little bit of a delay on these things, so I'd love to see if you guys can see me and hear me. Looks like we're starting to get some people in. Let's see. All right. A little bit of a delay to be sure. But we do have a live stream going here. All right, now it looks like the closed captioning is working too. So I am going to go ahead and get started. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I don't want to spend too much time hanging out here. I'd like to get to your questions just as quickly as I can, and we will just field the questions as they come up. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and share one of my screens over here. And then that way everybody can follow along with what I'm talking about as I review some of the investing and tax opportunities that a lot of people have available to them when they are navigating their professional lives with saving and investing. So I will go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Share it. And boom, just like that. All right. So it appears to be coming through. Again, there's going to be a little bit of a delay. So just please, bear with me as you have questions, and happy to get to them. So I'm Phil Pullum. I'm the owner of Stars and Stripes Financial Advisors. This is hopefully the first in a multi-part series of what I'm going to call an Ask Me Anything. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a topic that I think is important to the people that I work with. And then I'm going to open it up to questions. So you can ask me whatever, comes into your mind, whether it's related to this topic or not. I'm an open book. So feel free to ask away. So with that said, we'll get to it. So this is just a disclaimer. Essentially, I just want to focus on the intent of what I'm doing here is just that it's for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be financial advice, tax advice, accounting advice, legal advice, etc. So please just take this as is, which is that it's for educational purposes. Nobody here should mistake this as me giving financial advice. This is just for your benefit to have a conversation. It's for educational purposes, not financial planning, not professional services, not specific advice to anybody. So with that out of the way, I want to get into one of the most common planning opportunities and questions that I get when I'm talking to my clients, which is, should I pay taxes now or should I pay taxes later when it comes to retirement? So many, if not all of you, will have available to you either through an employer-sponsored retirement plan or through an IRA, the option to either contribute to those retirement plans in a tax-deferred manner or in a Roth manner. And essentially the difference is that if you choose the traditional or the tax-deferred contribution option, then you're going to go ahead and take a deduction to your income taxes in the current year for the amount that you contribute. However, when you pull that money out in retirement, the government's going to say, okay, we gave you a break at the front end, so now pay us on the back end. And Roth contributions or after-tax contributions are just the opposite. You say, government, hey, I'm going to pay taxes on this now. In exchange, when I pull the money out in retirement, I'd like to get that money out tax-free. And so that's the difference there. And in both cases, whether it's tax deferred or it's Roth, you end up with the opportunity of allowing that money to grow tax-free. So in the interim, there's no taxes. So I put a little example up here of somebody who contributed $23,000. And I'd just like to point out here, you can see that in the tax deferred, there's no tax on that initial $23,000. However, in the Roth, there is. So your initial contributions net of taxes for that year in particular, tax deferred, it's whole. In the Roth situation, it's not. So if you were to allow that to grow for 30 years at a 9% rate of return, that's where I get these two numbers. And it seems like a very big difference. You're like, wow, why wouldn't I always go with the tax deferred? I mean, that's 50% more, roughly speaking, right? You're talking about $100,000 difference. And it comes back to what I previously said, which is with tax deferred, the government says, now that you're retired and you're pulling money out, now you have to pay taxes on it. And you can see that those marginal tax rates really bring down the value of that nest egg, right? But one thing that is probably the most interesting and I think probably the most powerful thing for you or anybody else to keep in mind is that if your tax rate, if your marginal tax rate in retirement is the same as your marginal tax rate when you make the contributions, there's no difference in value, right? So in this example, I had somebody contributing at a 32% marginal tax rate, and the value of their nest egg, net of taxes or after all the taxes are accounted for, is exactly the same. So when you're thinking about making a choice between should I contribute to a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA, or a Roth 401k versus a traditional 401k, really the key decision factor, the key variable is going to come down to what do you think your future marginal tax rates are going to be compared to your current marginal tax rates. We know what the current marginal tax rate is. Looking into the future and making a guess about what your future marginal tax rate might be is much more difficult, right? None of us can, with 100% certainty, know what the future holds. And so that's a tough decision to make, but it's one that's worth some thought and some energy. So with that said, I do want to kind of visit a brief history of tax rates. As you can see here, we're actually at a relatively low marginal tax rate environment, especially for that upper tax bracket or the highest tax bracket. There was a 30-year period here where the top marginal tax rate was at or above 50%, and a significant period of time where it was at or above 90%. So if you're somebody who believes that marginal tax rates are going to go up in the future, that might make you lean a little bit more towards Roth contributions than traditional contributions. However, if you're somebody that believes, well, in this new era, we've seen a downward trend in marginal tax rates, then you might think just the opposite. Hey, let's go deferred. It's going to go lower, right? My contention in the way that I think about it is taxes go up and down as needs for the government go up and down. And when I look at this, I see a little bit of a history lesson, which is essentially World War I, very high marginal tax rates. World War II, plus the Cold War era, very high marginal tax rates. Wars are possibly the most expensive things that governments can conduct, right? And so when we think about what drives tax rates, in my mind at least, I think that big global wars are the types of things that present a risk for raising those tax rates. So if you're thinking to yourself, conflict is increasing, we're heading down that path, that might be something that you consider in choosing to contribute more towards Roth versus deferred, right? So I just wanted to point that out. And then something else that I'd like for everybody to consider and start thinking about is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act decreased our marginal tax rates. It actually lowered the tax brackets. And effectively what this did is it gave us a temporary reduction in our effective taxes. However, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to phase out or expire at the end of 2025. So for tax year 2026 and forward, unless they extend this, unless they pass legislation to extend these tax cuts, we should anticipate that our tax rates are going to go up in about 2 years, right? It's not too far down the road before these tax cuts revert back to what they were. And so just at a glance, besides this bottom lowest tax rate, every single other tax bracket, the rate actually increases. And in addition to that, besides that lowest tax rate, the brackets for where those tax rates apply actually start moving down, which is to say that you're going to start hitting those higher tax brackets earlier and earlier in your income life cycle. And I'll just use this 28% as a good reference point. So if I'm married filing jointly here, I would leave that tax bracket after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act tax breaks expire at that $289,250 threshold versus currently I leave that at $383,900. That's about $100,000 difference. So effectively, you're jumping into that next tax bracket $100,000 of income earlier. That is a big change for a lot of people. So as you're thinking about, hey, do I contribute to my retirement plans tax deferred or through a Roth vehicle? That might be another factor that you consider. So I'd just like to encourage you to think about that and how you choose to go about making the most out of your savings and investing. All right. So we've got that knocked out. And then this slide here, this slide is really just something that I wanted to put together so that people had a chance to see what the impact was if you choose to wait to start saving and accumulating for retirement. In this scenario, I've got, person A and person B. So person A is in the gray, person B is in the blue. And essentially what I did with this is I actually had these two people in this scenario save the exact same dollar amount over their working career. I just had person A save at a lower rate for a longer period of time. They started earlier. And I had person B just wait and start saving at a higher rate later in their career. And so I want to point out a couple things. One is person B is actually saving at a higher rate, right? So they're saving a greater percentage of their money, right, than person A is. Their actual account value never catches up, right? Which is a big deal. And if you push this out to infinity, it never would. Person B never would catch up. At least not before they die. And then the second thing that I wanted to point out is this employer match, right? Employer match, just like tax deductions you get for contributing to retirement plans, those are only good inside the current calendar year, right? So all of those in this scenario, 3% matches that this person got for that 10-year period for person A. Person B just completely missed out on those, right? So you actually end up seeing this massive difference in their portfolio value after the 38-year period, right? in this case, what is it? A little over $4 million compared to roughly $6.5 million. That's pushing a $2 million difference, which is, I think, a pretty big deal. So I wanted to put that out there for everybody to take a peek at, and hopefully this will resonate with some people, and they'll think to themselves, "Hey, I really need to save earlier and get this ball rolling." All right. So with that, that's really all I had in terms of the educational portion of the webinar today. I did want to say thank you for those of the people that decided to tune in and watch me today. And then I also wanted to just take a minute and open it up to see if there's any questions, to see if anybody wanted to learn something or just off the cuff or ask me anything, right? Hence the ask me anything portion of of this webinar. So I'm gonna just go on mute for a second. Please type in the chat if there's anything in particular you have a question about, and I will get to it. All right. Well, it appears there are no questions today. So I just want to say thank you again if you're watching this for taking the time. Please stay connected with me. You can use this QR code to reach out to me. It's got my information where you can reach me, email me, set up a meeting to talk more about anything you might have a question about. And then thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining me. If you liked the information I shared, please give me a thumbs up. If you have a question, throw it in the comments. I'll come back and check this periodically, and happy to answer any questions you might have. But until next time, please enjoy your day, and look forward to hearing from you all. All right, take care.